Today I will be challenging a misconception that many elementary students have that larger or heavier objects will sink when placed in water, while lighter or smaller objects will float. Students likely have this misconception because they may have had experiences of dropping something in the water and watching it sink. Students usually don't think that lighter or smaller things will sink because they assume they don't weigh as much. And they assume that larger things are heavier and heavy things will sink. In reality, whether an object sinks or floats is not just dependent on its weight or its size, it's also dependent on its density. Density is a measure of how solid something is. All things are made up of molecules. If the molecules of an object are very close together, the object is solid or dense. If the molecules are far apart from one another, the object is less dense or less solid. An example of a dense object would be a penny. Its molecules are close together. An example of a less dense object would be an apple. An object floats when it is less dense than water. It sinks if it is more dense than water. However, if you're considering density as the only factor when you're considering whether something sinks or floats, that's also a common misconception. It's also important to note that density is not the only factor. An object floats because a force equal to the weight of the water it displaces buoys it up, which also ties into the concept of buoyancy. In later grades, the understanding should become more complete by measuring the mass, the displacing volume, and also measuring densities. In elementary school, I would not go into all of that detail, but it's important that students start to understand the concept that objects do not sink because they're heavy or float because they are light. So here I have a large tub of water. I made sure it was a see-through container so that students could see straight to the bottom as objects are being placed in. I would probably start by passing the objects around. I would have the students feel them, look at them, see how light or heavy they are, and make some predictions. Do you think it will sink or float, and why? Then we would go ahead and test it. So we would put the penny in, and of course the penny goes right to the bottom of the water. Okay, and we would talk about maybe why that would happen. Then we would try the apple, and we would see that the apple is floating in the water, which surprises most students because an apple is pretty heavy. So the penny sinks and the apple floats. This tells me that the penny is more dense, and also the apple, it displaced the water and it's being buoyed up. Let's try with two more objects. We have this safety pin right here, which is very light, has a hole. It sinks straight to the bottom. However, here I have a coaster, and it's made out of wood. It seems pretty solid, and you stick it in the water, and you see that it just kind of floats on top. So this is a great time to have a discussion with your students and to see what they're thinking. Why do you think the coaster and the apple floated while the penny and the safety pin sunk? And this is a great opportunity to hear their thoughts and to discuss the concepts of density and buoyancy, and just to introduce these to your students. And then, of course, in the later grades, it's also important to introduce new concepts and have them measure the mass, the displacing water, and the densities as well. Thank you so much for viewing my video. I do have a handout attached in case this is something that you would like to try in your own classroom. Thank you.